Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. More from the Warhammer Fantasy League today with a great show between Pippington's Beastmen and Hyalanala's Vampire Counts. I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation, but let's get on to the battle. We begin, of course, with talk of composition and deployment, and as you can see, neither side here afraid to use the very interesting terrain that this battlefield provides. Let's take a look at the Beastmen in charge. We have Morgr the Shadowgave alongside a Brave Shaman of Death, both on foot. The front line consists of these 3 units of Bestigor Herd, armor-piercing and very capable, of course, and right behind them, we've got 4 units of Ungor Spearman Herd. And these guys are there so that if any large units come charging through, say, Crypt Horrors, for example, there is some anti-large right there. And then behind them, we do have these Ungor Raiders, and they are kept a little bit far apart, just so that if anything does manage to crash through or come in from the flanks, these guys don't all get shut down at once. Then we've got the Gorbel alongside a Minotaur with Great Weapon unit back here. Both of these guys are armor-piercing and anti-large, so they'll do a fair bit of work in those situations. While over here we have the Centaur with Great Weapons tucked away in these trees, hoping to maybe push through these trees and actually get some flanking maneuvers in if the opportunity presents itself. On the other side of the field, you can see the Vampire Counts are pretty wide spread. They are led by none other than Manfred von Karstein up in the air atop a Terrorgeist. The front line here consists of 3 units of zombies. They are, of course, just fodder troops, and right behind them we've got the Königstein Stalkers as well as the Skeleton Warriors, and on either flank, these Crypt Ghouls who will bring in some poison damage. Then behind them we've got these 3 units of Skeleton Spearmen, and in the center you can see we have a Banshee providing that ethereal support, physical resistance, fear, and terror, while the Claw of Nagash is right in the middle, providing some serious support in terms of replenishment of hit points and also causing some damage to the enemy. Then off to the side here now, you can see up in the air and in the trees, we've got the Dire Pack and the Feasters in the Dusk up front, the Fellbats up in the air alongside the Devils of Shorthaven, and these guys will be able to push forward rather aggressively and shut down any enemy range support and then push in for rear charges as well, just to cause that extra morale damage. So let's kick it into full speed and see how it all breaks down. Right away you can see the Beastmen are creeping forward. They want to maintain that high ground. They want to stay up here and force the Vampire Counts to go down and charge up and hopefully get some counter charges in there, while the Fellbats, you can see, are pushing in again, rather aggressively, hoping to take care of some of this range support nice and early. You can see these Ungor Raiders fire away, forcing the Fellbats to turn around, and unfortunately, as a result of that, they are able to spot the Centaur with Great Weapons. So the element of surprise has been lost, and the Centaur with Great Weapons need to decide what they're about to do. They don't want to get shut down too early. Of course, they are a very important unit, and you can see at the same time, we've got the Vampire Counts now charging down the field, seeing that the Beastmen aren't going to close the gaps over here, so they have to charge down and then charge back up as well. At the same time, we've got the Dire Pack over here pushing forward alongside the Feasters in the Dusk, and you can see the Ungor Spearman Herd over here turn around to try and intercept the incoming Dire Pack, and they very quickly turn around as the Centaur with Great Weapons over here try to close the gap into the Dire Pack and shut them down nice and early. Unfortunately, though, the Dire Pack is anti-large, and at the same time, we also have the Devils of Shorthaven and these Fellbats diving in. So a terrible situation for the Centaur with Great Weapon unit over here. They're going to be fully surrounded, they're going to be pinned in place, and they're going to take a lot of damage. At the same time, we do also have the Ungor Spearman Herd over here trying to push in here to try and provide some support against the large units, but the Feasters in the Dusk are right behind them giving chase, and though the Ungor Raiders are firing away, hoping to maybe get rid of the Crypt Ghouls over here, the Regiment of Renown, we also have the Fellbats back here hoping to close the gap into these Ungor Raiders and shut them down as they're firing away. Meanwhile, up front, you can see these lines are moving ever closer. The Ungor Raiders back here are pushing forward to maybe get some shots in, while Manfred as well is pushing in with some serious aggression back here. We've got the Centaur with Great Weapons initially planning on moving in and trying to provide some support, but you can see this unit of Centaur with Great Weapons has been terrified. They are routing. They've taken a severe amount of damage at about a quarter health, roughly, just a little bit above that. So a terrible move there by the Centaur with Great Weapon, and they have to now fall back, while over here as well, you can see these Fellbats have intercepted the Ungor Raiders over here, just harassing them, forcing them to pull back, unable to fire and provide support as these front lines move precariously closer. And you can see at the same time, the Beastmen front line is now charging down this hill over here, hoping to engage the Vampire Counts as they are at the bottom of that hill. It might have been a better idea just to wait for them to come a little bit higher, maybe get a bit more tired as they move up this steep incline, but at the same time, you don't really want to give them too much time to move in and potentially sneak through some flanking maneuvers and come through some of these cracks to the left and to the right of this battlefield. At the same time, of course, there is the ever-present threat of Manfred up in the air on that Terrorgeist, and you can see these charges now going down. The zombies obviously don't stand much of a chance, but it is those follow-up units and the Claw of Nagash that is extremely threatening, and you can see over here we've got the Ungor Spearman Herd at the back giving up on the fight, the Centaur with Great Weapons as well giving up on the fight, being chased off by these Fellbats, while the Dire Pack, again, looking for their next target back here. We have the Minotaurs with great weapons, the Gorbel, as well as the Centaur with great weapons, ready to protect these Ungor Raiders, as all of these extremely threatening units are back here, so they have to be very quick to respond. And in the center over here, you can see we do have these guys just charging in and already suffering some damage from that Claw of Nagash. Of course, it has that area of effect capability, keeping units alive while causing damage to enemy units, and you can see that focus fire as a result of all of that. The Ungor Raiders are focusing in on the Claw of Nagash, and that's a great idea. You want to eliminate that unit as quickly as possible. It doesn't help the Beastmen either that the Banshee is in there as well, but she has been hit by Spirit Leech. Again, a great move there. You want to take care of that ethereal, physically resistant unit using that magical damage. And back here, you can see we've got the Dire Pack getting a beautiful rear charge into the Ungor Raiders over here, but the Centaur with great weapon try to move in to intercept. Unfortunately, they're just a little too slow, and the Dire Pack is able to dive right in and stop these guys from firing away and prevent their morale support, or morale damage in the center, rather, I should say. At the same time, Doom and Darkness comes in from the Vampire Counts, trying to reduce the morale over here in the center, just trying to cause a little bit of morale damage alongside all of the fear and terror that's over there as well. While to the right over here, you can see the Beastmen have actually brought in a unit of Chaos Spawn just to provide some support, get a nice rear charge perhaps on some of these Crypt Ghouls, maybe scare them off. But of course, the Skeleton Spearmen are right here, so it's a little bit of a threatening situation for the Chaos Spawn to be in. To the left as well, you can see the Ungor Spearmen herd here will be able to hold, at least temporarily, but they are outnumbered and they're in a bit of a precarious situation. Ungor Raiders continue to provide support, while back here to the right, we do have these Minotaurs with great weapons as well, diving into the Dire Pack. Finally, a little victory for the Beastmen as the Dire Pack gives up on the fight. And back here as well, you can see the Gorbel is trying to close the gap, but he has been hit by Spirit Leech again. Good idea there. A very threatening unit trying to reduce its health. Manfred now the focus of all of this range support, but you can see over here, beautifully done. We've got these zombies brought right into the midst of these Ungor Raiders. Just lost track of keeping them separate, and so that one unit of zombies is going to bog both of these units down. And we also have the Fellbats diving in, just harassing the backline there, preventing all of that range support from coming in. And you can see Manfred up in the air, just looking where he can try to dive in and provide some support. It would be a great idea to get a nice rear charge into the Spearmen over here, perhaps freeing up that left flank, but you can see the Claw of Nagash pushing in, causing a great deal of damage, just kind of rolling in there, bringing in that damage. While off on the right over here, you can see a beautiful rear charge from the Devils of Schwarzhaven, and this is going to do a lot of hurt. You can see these individuals just being thrown about, the Bestigor, the Ungor Spearman herd, all just being tossed around, and the morale damage there is tremendous. Physical damage to follow shortly after, but you can see back here the Gorbel is pushing in to respond right away alongside these Minotaurs with great weapons. Excellent micromanagement there, responding immediately, but of course the Devils are able to take to the air, while over here Manfred is using Master of the Black Arts just to make sure magic stays alive. And over here as well, you can see Spirit Leech going down on the Claw of Nagash, just focusing in on that very threatening unit, hoping to destroy it as quickly as possible, while that left flank otherwise has completely faltered. Meanwhile, Invocation of Nehek goes down on the right flank, trying to keep these units all alive, especially as the very threatening Minotaurs with great weapons and the Gorbel dove in to the Devils of Schwarzhaven, and you can see just how quickly their health has dropped. They did absolutely magnificently, but now with those anti-large units from the Beastmen diving in, the Devils of Schwarzhaven are in a terrible situation. Invocation of Nehek therefore going in to try and keep them alive. Back here though, you can see the Ungor Raiders are giving up on the fight to the center and to the right over here, while to the left, these zombies are just keeping the Ungor Raiders occupied, forcing them to fall back, not able to do anything, unfortunately, not able to provide that range support. So wonderfully done there by the Vampire Counts. Manfred, once again, just looking for an opportunity to get involved, and you can see over here, Invocation of Nehek doing a good job keeping these guys alive, while the Ungor Spearmen herd to the right here have given up on the fight. The Minotaurs, of course, are doing quite well. The Chaos Spawn are dying off, and the Gorbel as well doing quite well. Another unit of zombies is being brought in over here to provide some assistance, while the Claw of Nagash decided to pull back into some safety, just keep itself alive, regenerate a little bit of its hit points, and then move in right afterwards. Once more, again, staying persistent, staying aggressive, while back here you can see all of these raiders are being forced back, as well as those spears just being kept away, while Manfred decides to dive into the center over here, again, tossing around some of these Bestigor herd, having an absolute field day, bringing in fear and terror, scaring off these individual units, while you can see immediately, though, the Minotaurs with great weapons and the Gorbel see their opportunity to strike and push in to dive in on Manfred von Karstein. You can see as well the Bray Shaman of Death is in a terrible situation here, ultimately dies off, and now magic is off the field for the Beastmen. And over here you can see a beautiful rear charge from the Feasters in the Dusk, again just bringing in that poison damage, trying to hurt these Bestigor herd, while another charge comes in from the Devils of Schwarzhaven. Beautifully done here. Absolutely magnificent cycle charging, just waiting for the Devils to get their health replenished up in the air, and then pulling them right in to cause a fair bit of hurt to this giant clump over here, while Manfred von Karstein himself takes to the air, turns around and looks again for an opportunity to get involved. And you can see the Gorbel and the Minotaurs with great weapons are there to deal with the Devils of Short Safe, and so a bit of a risky move perhaps, but an essential one as well, just to make sure that Manfred is able to free himself up. You can see the right flank, meanwhile, as seen from the Beastmen's perspective here, is faltering for the Vampire Counts as their morale is starting to drop. They are at critical binding in some cases, and the Bestigor herd, unfortunately though, are being terrified off. So Morgur, the Shadowgave, really has to do a lot of heavy lifting there, while over here you can see these Minotaurs with great weapons as well as the Gorbel are pulling back just to screen Manfred von Karstein, make sure that he's not able to have free reign over the battlefield as he dives in towards those Senegor with great weapons. Ultimately decides to stay in the air, of course, because of the threatening position, turns around and pops his breath into the Minotaurs with great weapons, hoping to get a little bit of damage done there. Unfortunately, it's not the most accurate of shots. It doesn't do as much as it potentially could have done, and so it's a little wasted over there, but the Minotaurs turn around alongside the Gorbel and get a nice charge into these zombies over here. Of course, they're not going to give up on the fight, but they are going to take a fair bit of damage from that. You can see over here as well the Claw of Nagash doing absolutely wonderfully. It's basically regenerated its health to about 3/4 full, so it doesn't have to worry too much for a while still, and you can see another unit of zombies being brought up over here just to provide some support again in this giant clump. The Minotaurs with great weapons now precariously low on morale, very willing to give up, and there you have it, the rout over there. Morgur the Shadowgave, basically the only unit from the Beastmen who are still willing to stick around and fight, and all the way back here, meanwhile, you can see we have some of these units recovering, willing to fight once more, but these zombies back here and the Fellbats are able to screen them and keep them at bay. So wonderfully done by the Vampire Counts, making sure that these various range support units or anti-large units aren't able to get involved in this very, very terrible situation in the front for the Beastmen. You can see again this Gorbel now very low on willpower as well, dropping its health, completely focused in on, while Morgur as well, very low on morale as well, just not willing to stick around. You can see the Banshee as well, still pretty much full on health, able to stick around and fight and cause a fair bit of damage, while over here, Manfred is chasing away some of these threatening units. The Minotaurs with great weapons especially, if they can be chased off the field, it'll do wonders for the Vampire Counts. Of course, over here as well, the Bestigor herd kind of preoccupied by these zombies, and you can see we have the Crypt Ghouls over here just pushing in for a nice rear charge, getting the poison damage in there, dropping the Bestigor herd morale, while the Devils of Short Safe once again take to the air, very much alive, very much willing to fight and chase after various units here and there. You can see over here the Bestigor herd just kind of running away, looking to keep a safe distance from the Devils as they come diving in and do a great deal of damage, of course, just tossing these guys around and again reducing morale significantly. And if you can scare off all the Beastmen units, you don't have to kill them, obviously. So wonderfully done there as the Bestigor herd look for an opportunity to maybe dive in, get away from the Devils, whatever is possible in the center. Again, the fighting continues, obviously a massive clump of Vampire Count units just focusing in on the threatening Gorbel as well as Morgur the Shadowgave, while off in the distance Manfred continues to chase after some of these threatening units. The Ungor Raiders over here may be able to pop some shots into Manfred, but decide instead to rout as well. Of course, terrified by the prospect of being charged in by that Terrorgeist. Back here, though, some Fellbats finally get taken care of, and over here we do have the Ungor Spearman herd pushing in to the zombies alongside this Ungor Spearman herd unit as well. But of course, they are just getting bogged down by fodder troops, not able to actually help in this essential situation up front over here. These Ungor Raiders as well now just pulling forward to maybe try and get some shots and do a little bit of damage in this giant clump, and you can see some of the Vampire Count units are giving up on the fight. Some of them are dying off because they were summoned onto the field, and others are just low on morale, low on health, and the Gorbel alongside Morgur are doing a tremendous amount of damage. Unfortunately, though, the Claw of Nagash is right there, and as I mentioned earlier, it's able to keep these units alive with its replenishing capabilities, and it also causes damage to enemy units. So the Beastmen have put themselves in a very tough situation, and though they tried, and they continue to try with range support to take care of the Claw of Nagash, it is just far too healthy right now, far too late in the battle. Off in the distance, you can see those Minotaurs finally get driven off the field, and Manfred is able to now turn his attention back to this main engagement, while these two units of Ungor Spearman herd are able to push in as well, having taken care of that zombie unit that was keeping them preoccupied. So they're hoping to get some nice rear charges over here, and you can see those rear charges are going to cause a little bit of morale damage and hopefully get some of these guys crumbling. You can see critical binding over here, and that morale is going to drop, but unfortunately, as the Gorbel drops, the Vampire Counts get emboldened, and the Claw of Nagash is nearby as well. Despite all of that range support coming in, the Vampire Counts ultimately decide they are going to stick around and fight. Morgur, however, is lowering his health as the Banshee kind of stands next to him, is willing to dive in and cause a fair bit of damage. The Claw of Nagash as well, causing a fair bit of hurt to health and morale, and you can see Morgur ultimately decides that he's maybe not going to stick around and fight. Might be best for him to actually leave the battlefield, drops his flag, and shatters. Now, the endless flow of corpses is always a great bit of help on the battlefield, but the impressive ability of the Vampire Counts to overwhelm the Beastmen backlines was paramount to their success. Some vital Beastmen units were taken care of early on, one way or another, and when many of them rallied, they were too far away to make a difference, and they were getting bogged down by useless zombies. Beautifully done by the Vampire Counts, a valiant defeat for the Beastmen. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight some amazing battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.